So this is my made in Mexico Fender player Stratocaster, and if you want a guitar that actually has the words Fender and Stratocaster on the headstock, then this is the cheapest thing you can buy. But is a made in Mexico guitar ever really going to be good enough to be your number one forever guitar, or will there always come a time where you need to upgrade? That's what we're going to look at in this video. So in this video, we're going to look at whether it's worth upgrading a guitar like this to either a better Mexican guitar, a Fender USA guitar, or maybe even something more expensive. And just so you understand where I'm coming from, I've been playing guitar for just over 25 years, but I'm still at a kind of average intermediate level. I don't really play live at the moment, and these YouTube videos are my main musical outlet, but I am doing quite a lot of travel, so I can only have one guitar, and it has to be one that can be unbolted and packed away into a suitcase. So recently my YouTube channel has been bringing in a decent amount of money, so I think if I want to upgrade this guitar, I can kind of justify it. Now, I originally bought this because I really loved this Typal blue colour, but since then Fender's actually released the Player Plus Stratocaster, which has got an even more amazing colour scheme. Now, I've kind of seen this guitar all over YouTube and social media, and it kind of really makes me want one, so maybe that's a good place to start in terms of what we could upgrade to. So from the Fender website, here's the specs for the basic Player Strat I have versus the new Player Plus Strat. Let's walk through them and see if there's anything here really worth upgrading to other than that really nice new colour. So the first obvious difference is the pickups. Now, the guitar I have has what they call Player Series single coil Stratocaster pickups, whereas on the new Player Plus, aside from it being an HSS configuration, we get noiseless pickups. Now, I do wonder if Fender may be deliberately underselling these pickups based on that description on their website, because they really are one of the best things about this guitar. They're Alnico 5, they're low output, and they're quite bright sounding, but they've really got that classic vintage Strat character to them. And as for noiseless pickups, well, what you might gain in terms of noise reduction, you might lose in terms of some of that vintage character. And all the time Fender are coming out with new noiseless pickups and claiming this latest version retains more of the character than the last. But, you know, there's really nothing wrong with these classic type of pickups, and I don't mind a little bit of buzz, you know. It's kind of part of the character of playing a Strat, so for me, it's not really an upgrade I'm looking to make. The next difference would be the fingerboard radius. So my guitar has a 9.5 inch radius, whereas the new Player Plus Stratocaster has a 12 inch radius with rolled edges. So I quite like the 9.5 inch radius, and it works well for me. But if I was going to change, I'd probably be looking for a 7.25, not a 12. For me, 12 is just too Gibson-y and not something I want on my Strat. As for rolled fingerboard edges, yeah, well, that's a great addition, but I've got it on a couple of my Fender basses, and honestly, Fender aren't doing it quite as well as some of the other manufacturers are. Now, both guitars have the more modern 2-point tremolo bridge, but my guitar has bent steel saddles, whereas the new Player Plus has block steel saddles. I kind of prefer the bent steel saddles just because it's more of a vintage look, but to be honest, it's not something I can get that excited about either way. Lastly then, the Player Plus Strat also gets an upgrade to locking tuners. So ignoring the messy way my strings are wound, there is a reason for that which I won't explain now. These tuners, they just do the job fine. I've got no issue with them. I tend to prefer the split post tuners just because everything comes out a bit neater, but I've got no issue with these, no tuning problems with the guitar, so there's no real reason to think I need to upgrade to locking tuners. So overall, it's clear that the Player Plus Strat has quite a few upgrades on paper, but they're not that meaningful to me. They take the guitar in a more modern direction, and maybe that's not really what I'm after. And in terms of price, if I was to sell my Player Strat, I'd maybe get $350, and I need to get to $850 for a Player Plus, so put in an extra $500, and for me, it's just not worth it as an upgrade. So if I'm not going to upgrade this to a better Mexican guitar, then what about a USA Fender? Well, the truth is, I've already upgraded to a USA Fender, and a few thousand miles away, locked safely in its case, is a candy apple red American original 60 Stratocaster. But before we get to that, I want to talk about a previous time I upgraded from a Mexican to a USA Strat. And if you've seen my videos before, you may well have seen my old brown sunburst made in Mexico standard Stratocaster. Now once upon a time I actually gave that guitar to a friend and upgraded myself to a new made in the USA Highway 1 Strat. However, it wasn't actually an upgrade, it buzzed and choked all over the place and was just generally a dull and lifeless guitar. To me, it was clear Fender were trading on the Made in the USA branding without the quality to back it up. Needless to say, it got sold on at quite a loss, but luckily a couple of years later, my original Mexican Strat found its way back to me. So back to my candy apple red American original Strat, and the story here is that during the first lockdown I was playing guitar a lot, and I was playing my blue player Strat above my Les Paul just because I find the Strat more comfortable for long practice sessions. And because I was enjoying playing the Strat so much, I thought to myself, I'm going to have to get a proper one, a real USA one. And I saw this red one for sale at a discounted price online and went for it. So I think it's a gorgeous guitar, and in a lot of ways it's really easy to see what the improvements are versus my player Strat. And in particular, it's just got more character to it, especially the way the neck feels and all those vintage elements that it's got. So if it's such a great guitar, what am I doing still playing my blue player Strat? Well, once again, Fender USA, it's got some playability issues. To be specific, there's a bit of a ramp at the top of the neck which is causing some of those upper frets to choke out. It's not something I can resolve with the truss rod, so at some stage it'll either need to be clamped for adjustment or resolved through fret leveling. To my ear, the guitar does sound great though. It's got a bit more of a full sound than the player Strat, but it's not necessarily better. I've made a YouTube video comparing the two, and in the comments it's been pretty much 50-50 in terms of which one sounds the best. Take a listen for yourself. So if you're thinking you can just swap your Mexican Strat for a USA one and it'll instantaneously be way better, then you might be disappointed like I was. But if a Fender USA isn't always the answer, then what else is out there? So it's time to brave the Christmas madness and hit the shops. It's so busy, even Santa's having to direct traffic. So right now it's like 3 days before Christmas and I've come down to Siam and hopefully we're going to find some nice guitars somewhere in here. So now we're in business, we found some PRS guitars here. So after searching through the standard PRS guitars, I finally see it, the Silver Sky. Now I know these guitars are pretty controversial, but for anyone who's had quality issues with Fender, it's pretty tempting to go over to PRS, and they're actually not as expensive as I had imagined. I'm actually quite a big fan of this guitar, but I don't think I'm quite ready to drop an extra 2k just to get it bashed up, taking it on all those planes. The next thing I see is a wall full of G&L, but for me, I don't think I'll ever get past that headstock, and despite Leo's involvement, some of the features like the high output pickups and the bridge design just don't really work for someone who wants just a classic Strat. Over at this place we've got some Nash guitars, they're kind of high-end Fender copies with relicking on them. Ultimately, I realised that if I want to buy a Fender type guitar, I actually want it to say Fender on it. So I end up back in old familiar territory. So here's a great place to come looking for Fender guitars, and they've got some amazing stuff in there. Stuff that you don't normally see in Europe, like, what's this here? Some sort of Strat / Jaguar crossover. And here we've got an Olan signature Strat with these angled pickups. Nice Paisley Telecaster there. Some really cool stuff here. But why would I buy another Fender Strat when the one I have already does the job perfectly? And past experience tells me that spending more money in no way guarantees a better guitar. Of course, coming to a place like this is hard not to be tempted, but that's the nature of modern consumerism. And just like Christmas shouldn't be about Gucci handbags or extravagant displays of bottled water, then playing guitar shouldn't be about owning a Fender or a PRS or whatever. No matter what guitar you play, If you get joy from playing, then that's all that really matters. So all things considered, I think I'm going to stick with my cheap Fender Strat. And there's 3 reasons really. Firstly, I'd say to Fender, I really like your products, but if you want me to spend big money on one of your high-end guitars again, you really need to sort out your consistency and quality control. Then secondly, just because I've got money doesn't mean I have to spend it, and I don't really want to be a victim to all that consumerism and social media influence. And then thirdly, and most importantly, I'm actually really enjoying playing this guitar right now and feel that I'm improving as a musician. And if there's anything I can do to improve my sound, then buying an expensive guitar is pretty low down the list compared to working on my technique and things like that. So the good news is, for my little blue Strat here, you're staying with me for the foreseeable future.